Sumitra, you'll need to unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes.
you.
Excellent. Sorry for the small disturbance. Very good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to share something that I know. Let me tell you that my interest in Vachanas was sparked by two events. One was a visit to a friend's place where I happened to go into her puja and I saw a picture and it looked unfamiliar. It didn't look like any of the deities that I knew. And then when I asked her, she told me that it was a picture of Basavanna. And then the next event was when I was teaching. What, yeah, where? Hello?
Hello?
Huh? Hello, can you see me?
No.
Can you hear? Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So, so that was something that happened, and then another around the same time, I had to teach my students couple of vachanas because they had to take the music exam that was conducted by the Karnataka government. So, and I decided that let me just study this a little more. I was curious to go into it. And so that's how I acquired whatever little knowledge I have about vachanas. So I'm happy to share this, but let me tell you at the outset, I am no expert, but I just read up a little bit to get to know what the whole thing was all about. And so now I want you to go back with me about 900 years in time. But before that, let us just listen to Vachana, a snippet by the great Hindustani musician Mallikarjun Mansoor. Are you able to hear that?
No, I think the volume needs to be a little louder, please. Have you started it?
Yeah, it's not playing. Oh gosh. Can you hear it now? Okay, I guess there's some technical snag here. I'm hearing it on my computer.
Excuse me. Yeah. If you are running the music audio on the same system on which you are using this meeting tool, then we won't be able to hear it. Only you can hear it. You should play it on another device, or you should be able to share this audio on the meeting.
If I play it on my computer, will it work?
Yeah, if you are running the meeting on
not through the PPT.
I doubt that because we can hear what you speak, not what is being run on your system, unless you present that as part of the meeting.
Okay, so anyway, then that's something that I don't think we can work out now, isn't it? I have those files on my computer.
No, ma'am. What I'm asking is, if this audio is available on another device at home, you can try playing on that. That will help. Or I don't know about this tool, about this meeting tool, but you should be able to share the audio in the meeting, not run it. You should be able to share the audio in the meeting, then it will play. We'll be able to hear.
Okay. Anyway, I don't think that will work. But how about videos then?
Videos work.
videos, but that will also have audio, I suppose. Okay, let's just go forward and see how we do with all these constraints. So anyway, I wanted to play a snippet from Pandit Mallikarjun Mansoor's rendition of a Vachana, just to give you an idea of how music has been integrated beautifully into this poetry. But let's just go back in history now to 900 years ago. At that time, the Alvars and Nayanmars were doing a lot for Vaishnavism and Shaivism. And in Karnataka, the influence of Shaivism was very high. And there were also other branches of Shaivism, such as the Kalamukas and the Kapalikas. But let's focus our attention on a few districts in North Karnataka, specifically the districts of Bagalkot, Bidar, and Bijapur. And what was happening here was that the weak Chalukyan rulers were being overthrown by the Kalachurias. And these Kalachurias had a meteoric rise and fall, of course, later. So around the 12th century, there was great political and social turbulence in that region. And all these dynasties were constantly at war with each other. And there were also invasions from the Muslim sultanates of the north. So there was a lot of heavy looting, arson, and the common man was burdened with a lot of taxes. So generally, and also the religious conflicts between Shaivites, Vaishnavites, Jains, and Muslims, and religion had become very, very dogmatic. And then, of course, you had the caste system, and untouchability had crept in a big way. So it was a very big struggle for the common man. And of course, now when things reach such a low, there has to be a revolution of sorts. And that is when the Sharana revolution happened. I mean, it needed the social structure needed a revolution to set things right to some extent. And this Sharana revolution, which happened for about 100 years, did a huge upheaval of the system at that time. And it constituted the beginning of Veera Shaivism or Lingayatism. So let me tell you what that means. So this is an 8th century text, which from a work called Siddhant Shikhamani, which tries to encapsulate who and what is Veera Shaivism. So it says, all this, the Sanskrit, the meaning says, the letter V stands for Vidya or knowledge, that the Shiva and Jiva are one. And those who rebel in this concept are said to be Veerashaivas. Some say Veerashaiva means militant or heroic faith in Shiva as well. So this is a reference to the text. And we will discuss the events of the Veerashaiva or Sharana movement, its principal characters, and the universal truths, which are the vachanas that emerged from this journey. So that's what we will be doing. And our hero, undoubtedly, Basavanna, the founder of this movement, that I told you that I also saw in the puja, and he is worshipped by the followers of this faith. And Basavanna, to give you a bit of history about Basavanna, he was born to a pious Brahmin couple in 1106 AD. His birthplace was Manigavalli, and his parents died early. He grew up in a place called Bhagewadi, which is in Bijapur district, and was looked after by his foster parents, Madhi Raja and Badambike. So he is supposed to have undergone the red ceremony at the age of 16, but stifled by rituals and the caste system, he left home in search of Shiva. So he reached Kudala Sangama, which is situated at the confluence of the Krishna and Ghataprabha rivers in today's Bagalkot district. And there he found a guru, a Jataveda Muni, who taught him the Vedas and religious texts. One night, while this was happening, the Lord is said to have appeared in his dream and asked him to go to Mangalabada, where King Vidyala reigned. Basavanna was distraught to leave his lord at Kudala Sangama. He didn't want to leave that place, But the following night, again, the Lord appeared in his dreams and told him that the next day he would see something miraculous happen. And next morning, when Basavanna went to the temple, he saw that there was a linga in the mouth of the Nandi in that temple. So looking at that linga, he now felt that he could carry his Lord with him. So he felt he could leave Udala Sangama and he went to Mangalavada, and there he became a clerk. So the king was King Bijala, and he was under the lordship of the Chalukyan king Taila III, who ruled from this place called Kalyana. But Bijala soon overthrew this weak King Taila III, and he occupied the throne himself. And since Basavanna was already a clerk there, Basavanna was given the important post of a finance minister. And Basavanna did his roles, performed his roles very well. And he also had 2 women, Bagangambike and Neelambike. So what has all this got to do about Vachanas, you might ask? Becoming interested, real revolution is about to happen. So Basavanna, with the help of his family, opened the doors of his house called Mahamane, literally great house, to all the Sharanas. Now, who are these Sharanas, you may ask? Generally speaking, a Sharana is a person who realizes that he is a direct particle of the divine spark of Shiva. That is, he or she is a living, liberated soul. That is sometimes the ultimate, goal of our existence, which is to realize the God within us. So these Sharanas were realized beings, and when they came to Kalyana, they had Basavanna to look up to. So, and these Sharanas came from all strata of society. It was not, the wealthy or the lower caste or the upper caste. Anybody could be a Sharana. So this caste-ridden society, Basavanna's initiative was revolutionary in those times. Apart from the Mahamane, Basavanna also set up something called the Anubhava Mantapa. Now, this is an extremely significant happening because it was a kind of a discussion forum. It was a place where Sharanas gathered to discuss and debate and their spiritual experiences, and that is when they spoke Vachanas. So Vachanas happened in this Anubhava Mantapa, where a lot of frank discussions happened without fear of any caste being misunderstood. So that is the Anubhava Mantapa, and all that was discussed there, the poetry became Vachanas. The term Vachana had been in vogue in the sense of a piece of prose or poetry. It is not a term that came into existence at that point. So the Vachanas spoken by the Sharanas were spontaneous expressions, and they are sometimes even referred to as Kannada Upanishads. And of course, Kannada was chosen because it was the language of the common man. Until then, or even later, the Sanskrit was the language of the learned. So when you spoke in Kannada, you could be easily understood by anybody. And in Vachanas, we will not see any rules about the meter and rhyme. Generally, otherwise, there are very strict meter rules. Even if you take a kriti or a song in Carnatic music, then it needs to have a certain rhyme conditions are there. But in the Vachana, the content was you could form it in any way, and as long as it sort of had poetic thought, the thought was more important than rhyme or meter. And every Vachana was dedicated to the chosen deity of the Vachanakara. Vachanakara is the person who speaks the vachanas. I wouldn't even say composes the vachanas, because it's a expression that is very spontaneous. So the chosen deity of the Vachanakara is addressed. And for instance, in Basavanna's case, this is Kudala Sangama, which is Shiva at Kudala Sangama. So all Basavanna's vachanas will have the term Kudala Sangama Deva, addressing the entire content of this vachana. He addresses it to Shiva at Kudala Sangama. So the mudra, or how do we know that it is the Basavanna vachana, is when you find the words Kudala Sangama Deva in that. So let us now look at one of the vachanas of Basavanna, just to understand how beautiful the thought and the poetry is. So I will first just say, give you the translation in English, and then since audio I can't play, I'll try to sing a bit so that I hope you can see it. So the beautiful translation is, Lord, my tongue is sweet with nectar of thy name. My eyes are all aflame with beauty of thy face. The very thought of thee haunts all my nights and days. My ears are filled, you see, with music of thy praise. Lord, I am a bee in the lotus of thy feet. Just give me a sec. Vajanadalli Namamrita Tumbi Nayanadalli Nima Muruti Tumbi Vajanadalli Namamrita Tumbi Nayanadalli Nima Muruti Tumbi Manadalli Nimma Nenehu Tumbi Manadalli Nimma Nenehu Tumbi Kiviyalli Nimma Kiruti Tumbi Kiviyalli Nimma Kiruti Tumbi Kudala Sangama Deva Kudala Sangama Deva Nimma Charana Kamala Kolaganu Tumbi Vajanadalli Namamrita Tumbi. So the word Tumbi here in the initial lines means fullness, to show that it is full of, my tongue is filled with the nectar of your name, my eyes are full of your beauty. And finally he says, I am a Tumbi, I am a bee in the lotus that is your feet. So the symbolism is really beautiful, and such poetry, whether it has rhyme or meter, there's no need for that, because sentiment is so beautiful. So in fact, Basavanna has been compared to Kalidasa, the famous poet Kalidasa, in his usage of metaphors. Now, the teachings in the vachanas are loud and clear. There can be no doubt exactly what here Basavanna has in mind when you hear this vachana. The Sharana must have the constancy to say, I will not have another's will. The Sharana must have the constancy to say, I will not have another's wife. The Sharana must have the constancy to say, I will not have another's God. The Sharana must have the constancy to say, Linga and Jangama are one. And see, these are universal truths, and across centuries, across time, across religions, all these are absolute truths which cannot be refuted, even say 1,000 years later. So look at humility. Despite his greatness, Basavanna says in another vachana, lesser man than I, no, there is none. Greater than Shiva's devotees, no, there is none. So he's very clear that if you are if you have Shiva, the spark of Shiva within you, there's none greater than you. So I don't know, I would have liked to play some visuals, but probably you can listen to, can you let me know if you can see this? I'm just playing something. It's not playing. Okay, I wanted to play a visual of a vachana which has been beautifully, presented, but unfortunately I am not able to do that. So let me tell you the translation of this vachana. It's, look at the irony. Just look at the irony. I think that's what they were trying to say when it comes to rituals and what do you want to do with your ritual. So just listen to this vachana and then I will speak a little more about it. On seeing a snake statue, they ask to worship it. On seeing a real snake, they ask to kill it. When a pious man comes hungry, they ask him to go away. When they see a lifeless idol, they try to feed it. If they ignore the followers of Kudala Sangha, they will become like moths hit by stone. So this is the crux of the message is, when a pious man comes hungry, they ask him to go away. But when they see a lifeless idol, they try to feed it. Seems very ironical. And what he's trying to do is to show us that certain symbolisms and rituals that we follow without thought are meaningless, and we would rather do things that make the lives of people around us better. So as we saw here, the snake metaphor is a powerful metaphor and used very often in vachanas. And for instance, to decry hypocrisy and superstition, vachana, in another vachana, Basavana says, a snake charmer and his wife set out to find a bride for their son. They see a bad omen and cancel their journey. And what is this bad omen? It is another snake charmer and his wife. So just to show that your superstition is completely, unwarranted and not quite what one would do. And now next I'm going to lead you a translation of a very beautiful vachana, which is probably an iconic vachana. And this is a translation of the great writer A.K. Ramanujan. So he says, the rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, the body the shrine, the head a cupola of gold. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers, things standing shall fall, but the ever moving shall stay. Now, I would have loved to play a snippet of a dance for you about this, but I think given the circumstances, I'm not able to do that. So let me just sing this vachana for you. One sec, just give me a sec. The vachana is Ullavaru Shivalaya Maduvaru. So I think the Kannada is also pretty simple. Those who have will build Shiva's temples, and the one who doesn't have will have to give his entire being for Shiva. So this is the Vachana. Ullavaru Shivalaya Maduvaru Nanenu Madali Padavanai. Yeah. The word is Nanenu Madali. What can I do? I'm after all a poor man. Nanenu Madali Padavanaya. Enna Kale Kamba. My legs are the pillars. Dehave Dehula. My body is the shrine. Shirave Honna Kalashavaya. My head is the gold Gopuram. Kudala Sangama Deva Kelaya. Oh Lord of Kudala Sangama, please listen. Tavarake Alivuntu Jangamake Alivilla. Stavarake Alivuntu. The ones that are standing will fall. The Savarake Alivuntu Jangamake Alivilla. Jangamake Alivilla. But what he means by that is the soul. Jangamake Alivilla. Kudala Sangama Deva. Kudala Sangama Deva. Kudala Sangama Deva. So this is a very, very important and significant Vachana, which I had, of course, a dance presentation for you, but I'm not able to play that. But when before we get carried away by Basavanna, I would like us to go back to the Anubhava Mantapa, because there we have to see another extremely interesting personality who was the head of this Anubhava Mantapa, and he was none other than Allama Prabhu. Now, to show you the different texture of his Vachana, let me read a translation. I saw the fragrance fleeing when the bee came. I saw the intellect fleeing when the mind came. I saw the temple fleeing when God came, O Gogeshwara. So look at the difference and the kind of clever way in which he says what he wants to convey. So very little is known about Allama Prabhu. Lots of versions are there. One says that he was the son of a dance teacher and was the temple drummer. And here are pictures of two ancient temples in the area where Allama Prabhu is said to have lived. This is the Kedareshwara temple, and it is believed to be Allama Prabhu's birthplace. In the Pallikadi is said to be Allama Prabhu's birthplace. And this is the 9th century Madhukeshwara temple, which is at Banavasi. Some say that Allama Prabhu was the drummer in this temple. Very, very beautiful temples, pictures that I found on the net. And Allama Prabhu fell in love with a lady and married her, and tragedy struck and she died suddenly. So he wandered in grief like a madman, and when he was sitting in a grove, he noticed the tip of a temple kalasa sticking out on the ground. And there he's said to have dug and found a shrine with a closed door. So, of course, all these are legends and stories, but they will be having a message. And let's go and let's see what that message is all about. It's about finding a guru. So what happened was that he found a guru in a yogi who was called Animishaya, and Animishaya gave him a linga in his hand and attained moksha, which means that Animishaya was waiting for Allama to come and receive this important linga from him. And Allama is said to have attained enlightenment then and there. And what is enlightenment? I think it just means that you realize that you have Shiva within you. And he was seeking a guru, and he himself became the guru because he had found truth. So now you heard earlier that Basavanna found the linga in the Nandi's mouth, and now I'm referring to Allama having got the linga from a guru. So what is this linga and why is it very important? But for the Veerashaiva, the linga is the most important thing. The whole world is in his hands, so as to speak. See this? So this, the Sthavara linga is the linga that is worshipped in temples. The Veerashaiva wears a miniature linga called the Ishtalinga around his or her neck at all times. And that is why, precisely why Veerashaivites are also called Lingayats. And of course, I'm sure there are many technical differences, but broadly speaking, this is how it is. And the Lingavanta means one who wears the Ishtalinga on their body. So the Ishtalinga is, for the Lingayat, is his personal god. He holds it, he or she, I'm sorry, the females are absolutely equal and they can do everything that a man also does. Holds it in the palm and performs puja to it. And when I mean puja, you have to do all the rituals that you would do to any other outside linga. You can do it just by holding it in your palm. So you can take your god with you wherever you go, and all you need is a clean hand to hold the god and perform whatever prayers you want. So similar to the sacred thread ceremony for the Brahmins, the Lingayats undergo the Linga investiture ceremony, where they are initiated into the Linga wearing and worshipping procedures. So as I said, there is no difference between genders, and they do not recite any Sanskrit shlokas, and it's also not necessary for them to go to temples. So of course there are temples that they go to today, but going to temples was not is not a necessity. And they do wear sacred ash, the vibhuti, on their forehead. And let me now sing another vachana which has this important piece of information, that the vibhuti on the forehead is a very important and beautiful addition to vachana. So before I sing it, let me just tell you the words in Kannada and English. So Neerige Naidile Shringara, the lake's ornament is the Naidile flower. Samudrake Tereye Shringara, the sea's ornament is the wave. Gaganake Chandrama Shringara, the sky's ornament is the moon. Namma Kudala Sangana Saranarigalla Sala Vibhutiye Shringara. So it means the ornament of Kudala Sangama's devotees is the vibhuti on their forehead. So the Shringara is used in the term of beauty. So I will just sing this vachana for you. Nirige naidile Shringara, Samudrake Tereye Shringara, Narige Gunave Shringara, Gaganake Chandrama Shringara, Nama Kudala Sangana Sharanarigala Sala Vibhutiye Shringara, Kudala Sangana Charanarigala Sala Vibhutiye Shringara. So Vibhuti is Shringara, and again this is a Basavanna Vachana, but I used it to illustrate how Vibhuti is an ornament for a Veerashaiva or a Lingayat. So God is only one for them, and that one is Shiva, and this is not Shiva of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. It's a God that's above all that. He is Shiva, the Almighty. And one more important term that I'll have to tell you is the term of Jangama. And Jangama actually refers to a traveling religious teacher who is ideally free and pure. Of course, it also refers to the soul. There was supposed to be 190,000 Jangamas or mendicant devotees who were living in Kalyana during Basavanna's time. So that's how far this Lingayatism or Veerashaivism had spread during the time of Basavanna. So look at these very interesting pictures of antique silver ornamental linga holders. So you probably needed them when you traveled. So let's go back to Allama, and he was the unopposed head of the Anubhava Mantapa, and I think Allama had a different kind of thought process, and he created some vachanas that are cryptic and have multiple layers of meanings. These vachanas are called Bedagina vachanas, and look at this one. It says, 5 serpents have 1 body and 2 teeth. I saw the corpse dead of the serpent's bite move. So it seems bizarre, but the inner meaning of this is as follows. The 5 serpents denote the 5 senses. The 5 senses are the 5 faces of the body called the mind. When such a mind clouds the soul with its doubts, the latter, which is the soul losing its native glory, would be as good as dead. The soul revolving in the cycle of births is compared to a dead corpse moving. Only when the soul knows the absolute shall it be free from this vicious cycle. So this is the kind of vachana that Allama Prabhu is very well known for. And look at this, another one which is even more fascinating. The deer with the tiger's head, tiger with the deer's head, the 2 joined at the waist. It's not tiger, not deer, but something else come to eat next. Look, when the body without head graces, look, O Gogeshwara, the leaf vanishes. So I think I'm running short of time to explain the meaning and the significance of something like this, but it is much more. I mean, he's using all these to catch the attention of the readers and for them to delve into what exactly he means by these symbolisms. So looking at these vachanas and reading them, I sort of requested my artist friend Nandini Harish to do a painting, to draw a sketch with whatever comes to her mind from reading these vachanas. And very interestingly, she drew this sketch and dedicated it for my presentation. She says that she has titled the painting as Chance versus Choice, the journey through life. And it's all a game that's played in the arena of karma, maya, and kala. Karma, all prarabdha, which is the term that is used in Veerashaiva literature a lot, and of course maya, we all know, and kala, time. So this is a very interesting painting that is part of her imagination based on the vachanas. And after this, I want to come back to a very, very important Charana who lived in the time of Basavanna, and that of course is a name all of you perhaps have definitely heard of, the very famous Akka Mahadevi. And let us go and delve into her contribution a little bit. She was very, very special, extra special, because I'm sure you guessed it, she was a woman and she was a very, very free thinker. And you will be surprised to know that the Sharana movement produced not 1 or 2, but 33 women who were Sharanas or Sharaneyara, as they are referred to. And of course, Akka Mahadevi is the most well-known of them all. She was born in Uduttadi, a village in Shimoga district. At the age of 10, she was initiated into Shiva worship by an unknown guru. how probably she was meant to be you know, Veerashaiva or a Sharana, even from her birth. And the temple there had Shiva in the form of a deity called Mallikarjuna. And of course, it is said that Akka Mahadevi was extremely beautiful, and she was definitely much sought after. And king wanted to marry her. King was Kaushika, and he wanted to marry her. And he was also a Jain. I mean, that was another piece of information. But she did not want to marry him because, of course, her mind was fixed on Channamallikarjuna. And she left him and her parents and everything and wandered in search of Shiva and her devotees and his devotees. And it was very, very significant that she chose to go to the same Anubhava Mantapa where Allama Prabhu was serving as the head and all the Sharanas had congregated. Of course, another fact that I'm sure all of you know very well is the fact that she preferred to shed her clothes and cover her nakedness only with her tresses. And she is symbolized beautifully even in this picture like that. And what is very, very interesting is how she went to the Anubhava Mantapa and what transpired there. A dialogue of epic proportions happened between Allama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi, because Allama Prabhu did not want to admit her into their fold easily without asking her some fundamental questions. So he asks Akka Mahadevi, "Why come you hither, pray, O woman in the budding bloom of youth?" At the word woman, our Sharanas see red. If you can tell your husband's identity, come sit. Else pray, be gone. If you desire the joy of our Sharanas' fellowship, tell who your husband be, O mother. So this was what Allama Prabhu asked her. And then Akka Mahadevi spoke so boldly, "Hara, for endless time have I made penance, so you might become my wedded lord. Mine own sent me to him who holds the moon, smeared ash upon my brow, and tied the bracelet to my wrist, so I might be Channamallikarjuna's own." And then Allama asked her, "Why do you cloak yourself with your hair, shedding your dress?" And Akka says, "Unless the fruit is ripe within, the outer peel will never lose its gloss. I covered myself lest sight of seeds of love should do you hurt, not me. Is there any harm in this?" So she is not at all feeling apologetic for her actions, and she is very clear that her husband is Channamallikarjuna, and that's what she told Allama Prabhu. And the veil of hair was not meant to hide her shame. It was done so that others may not be distracted, because she couldn't care less. So imagine there was another person. I mean, my thoughts just went to Draupadi, who was at a point in time. She was being disrobed in a public setting like this, and how she had to ask the Lord's grace to save her. And here you have Akka Mahadevi boldly going naked in front of an assembly of men. And I had, of course, a very beautiful dance presentation for you, but that will have to wait for another day. And look at this translation in which Akka Mahadevi details about how she wed her groom, setting a canopy of fire over an altar made of water, spreading a hailstone carpet. He came and wedded a headless bridegroom to a legless bride. They gave me to a life never to be shaken off. They married me to a groom named Channamallikarjuna. So a beautiful imageries, a headless bridegroom to a legless bride, and they made never to be shaken off. That is the crux of the matter. For all the lifetimes that I would be born, I would always be wedded to Channamallikarjuna. So that is her mudra. Or I told you that when you hear the word Channamallikarjuna, you must instantly know that it is Akka Mahadevi's mudra. Similarly, I don't know whether I told you earlier that Allama Prabhu was Gogeshwara, and Channamallikarjuna literally means Lord white as jasmine. But just look at this pain that Akka Mahadevi should have suffered, because as a woman in those times, because she definitely championed the cause of women and upheld the fundamental rights of a woman in society. So she says, "Don't hold me, don't stop me, let go of my hand, hem of my sari. Don't you know of the worst hell for those who break the promise made in black and white? You shall be doomed if you touch the woman married to Channamallikarjuna. Channamallikarjuna is my husband, oh brother. No one else can be my man." So the rest are all brothers, and she is wedded to him. So Akka Mahadevi wandered again and reached the forest near Sri Shailam, where she attained Lingaikya, that is becoming one with the lingam. So in this situation, if we now look at some very, very important lessons that we have to learn from this movement, it is the fact that people of all strata of society could become charanas and could compose or sing vachanas or spout. I'm not even saying sing, even speak vachanas. So and one more thing is, people had to perform any task happily. I mean, they performed any task happily without any kind of apprehensions or reservations, because there is a very important Lingayat tenet which says, of course, sorry, this is, I forgot to change the slide. This is the slide showing Akka Mahadevi at arguing with Allama Prabhu in the Anubhava Mantapa. I hope you've all seen that. And this is Akka at Uduttadi, where she was born. And next we come to this. This is the person, another Vachanakara called Dasi Maiya, and he was born in a village called Mudanuru, and he is supposed to have seen Shiva while performing penance, and he advised, Shiva advised him that working in the world was a part of worshipping and reaching him. I mean, a very important message, because you don't have to undertake great penance to actually experience Shiva. One can be involved in what one is doing and yet will be able to have an experience of the Lord. And the important tenet that sums it up is Kaya Kave Kailasha, which means work is worship. The idea is that every individual must work according to his capacity, and that work must not only serve his redemption, but that of society also, because this is how the spiritual power will emerge, even though we are all engaged in our worldly pursuits. I mean, one has to see how very relevant this particular message is even today, because we are all engaged in what we are doing, and how do we also include the spiritual pursuit into that. And so this is a very, very significant message from this faith. They did not find it necessary to dispense with their work for the sake of mystic attainment. So Dasimaya, his profession was weaving, and he set up many looms. So this is the picture of the temple at Mudanuru, and he, in one of his vachanas, he asked very searching questions about the caste system. He says, did a woman's soul have breast and braid? Did the priest's soul have a sacred thread? Did the lowly born, the lowest, hold a broom in his soul? How can the fools of the world know the knot knit by thee, O Lord Ramanatha? And his, of course, his favorite deity is Ramanatha, who resides in the temple at Mudanuru. This is a picture of Shiva and Parvati there. And during Basavana's time, there were several Sharanas who came from the working class. For example, you had Madiwala Machaya was a washerman, Medara Ketaya was a basket maker, Hadapadi Appanna was a barber, and Ambigara Chodaya was an oarsman, and Madara Chennaya was a cobbler. So you had many charanas from several professions, like a potter, Kumbar Gundana was a potter. So you had all of them expressing profound philosophical thought through their vachanas. And sometimes they use the imagery of their professions in those vachanas. For example, Madara Dhulaya asked Shiva, who appears before him when he's making sandals. So he was a cobbler. So he asked Shiva, why do you come here to the one carrying this bag of flesh? Go back to the silver mountain, the horn of your devotees. So then one more, an untouchable Dohara Kappaya who laments, oh, I am doomed. I have not touched you, even after touching you. Cannot my heart touch you, even if my hands cannot? What a beautiful thought. Cannot my heart touch you, even if my hands cannot? The thought of an untouchable who feels unwanted and, disregarded by society. And Ambigara Chaudhaya, the ferryman, says, here I come, a ferryman without a body, to the great flowing river. If you pay the price, your mind that grasps and lets go, I shall take you across the great stream to the end, to the village without words or limits. Another fantastic and beautiful thought. He says, give me your mind, because your mind is that thing which lets you, which grasps you, and it does not allow you to do what you want to do, what you should be doing. Give me that mind, and then I will take you to the great stream which without words or limits. That's a fantastic metaphor, and that's the message from Chaudhaya, the ferryman. And I cannot just marvel at how far this mystic thought has penetrated in society and inspired people from all strata to become not just poets and philosophers, but realized souls. But unfortunately, such an ideal scenario did not last very long. The resentment was building up, and there was a trigger point, which was the intercaste marriage of the son of a untouchable Charana to the daughter of a Brahmin, and King Bijala ordered that the perpetrators be tied and trampled upon on the streets with an elephant. The Veerashaivas rose in revolt. Basavana tried his best to preach non-violence, but that was not possible, and a great what do you call a conflict opened up, and people were at each other, and extremists assassinated Bijala. There were riots, but Basavana went back to Kudala Sangama, and he died there soon after. So how did the Vachanas survive this upheaval? What happened? Of course, there's another visual of another Vachana, and this is Ambigara Chaudhaya. So what happened to the Vachanas? It is interesting that Shantarasa, a librarian, even at the time of the Vachana movement, was given the task of recording and compiling the Vachanas rendered spontaneously at the Anubhavam and outside. So there was a record keeper who recorded these Vachanas, but from the 13th to the 16th century, Vachana writing virtually disappeared. And in the 15th century, a consolidation of the Vachanas was undertaken, resulting in the landmark Vachana compilation Shunya Sampadane. And in the 19th century, so that's what it is. And what is happening now is that a mammoth task of translating 2,500 Vachanas into 10 Indian languages has been completed. And you can avail of these copies. They're available right here in Bangalore. And 4 foreign language translations will also be available and should be available by now. And let's see that Kalyana, which is today known as Basava Kalyan, is a town in the Bidar district, and it has the world's largest statue of Basavana at 108 feet. So that is our, that is where we are with Vachanas. But I want to just tell you one small thing about how it is for me to be making this presentation, because I always end with this quick quip that is quite ironical. See, I was a IT professional and I worked for a Danish software company, which for which I had to make a system to run a slaughterhouse in which live pigs went in at one end and sausage cans came out at the other end. And a journalist interviewed me about this, and then she said in a Danish newspaper, Hindu vegetarian rights software for Danish slaughterhouses. So in a similar situation here, I am a Brahmin, a non-Lingayat, I'm Kannada illiterate, and I'm a Vaishnavite, and I've so far spoken to you about an anti-Brahmin Charana movement and Kannada Vachanas and Shaivism. So I hope I have set the scene correctly for you, and if you still have any questions for me, and if you want to share your thoughts, please go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumitra. That was really wonderful, and good you had issues with your audio, because we could instead of playing, you gave us a live concert. Thank you for that. There are some.
Thank you, Sumitra. It was awesome to go to Kudala Sangama. I've been there, but it was so nice going with you on the screen, sitting at home. Thank you. God bless.
Mr. Nagaraj Rao had a point to make. Sir, would you like to go?
Yes. Sumitra, Nitin, it was a wonderful session. I really enjoyed as a person interested in Carnatic music. Vachana is also an interest of mine, though I cannot sing. Now the question is, there are two questions. One is, you remember in Carnatic music, there is a coding called Katapayagi's Sutra. Is there anything like this for Vachana also?
Sorry, Sumitra.
It is Katapayagi Sutra, based on which is a coding. It was as early as 1500, 15th century. Using that as the code, you can decipher any ragas using that code. Is there anything like this in Vachana also?
Sorry, we are
You're not audible.
Yeah.
Not audible.
No, we are not able to hear.
Sorry, you're not audible.
Okay. I'll put the second question also. You can answer them together if you don't mind. By that time, audio should be okay. The second question is, there's a person called Sarpa Bhushana Shivayogi who also supported the Vachanas and the Lingayism. He's a contemporary of Mysore Sadashiva Rao. Can you give some brief about Sarpa Bhushana Shivayogi? No, her audio, I think, is not working.
Sir, ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಮಠ ಬಂದು ಮೆಜೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಹತ್ರ ಇದೆ. ಹಲೋ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿನ ಪೀಠಾಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು ಮಲ್ಲಿಕಾರ್ಜುನ ದೇವರು ಅಂತ. ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿಗಳ ನಂತರದ ಬಹುಶಃ ನಾಲ್ಕನೆಯವರು ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಇವರು. ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಮಪ್ರಭು ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಬಸವಣ್ಣರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ದಿನಗಟ್ಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಮೆಜೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಸರ್ಕಲ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಸರ್?
ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. ನನಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ the Lingayat fact actually and vachanas. ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಆಡಿಯೋ ಏನೋ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದು ಸರ್.
ನಿತಿನ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಿತಿನ್
Hello,
ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, come down. See, couple of questions you said about the Katapayadi Sutra. So there is no such formula for the numbering. But for the sake of keeping track of the order of vachanas, yes, there is a number in the books that have been released by the government. So the number in the English book for a vachana will be the same that is in another, say, Kannada book. So across books you will have the same number, but there's no logic like the Katapayadi Sutra for the numbering. And secondly, Sarpabhushana Shivayogi came much later, about 4 to 5 centuries after the Sharana movement. And honestly, I don't have any information about him. Since it was not part of the Sharana movement, I did not go into that as a matter of study.
Thank you once again. I appreciate this.
Mrs. Sumitra, Nitin, from what I could see, what you explained about this Jangamas and our Shiva Sharanas, it's very much like our bhakti yoga. That's what I felt. It's I suppose it's a close analogy.
Yes, absolutely. See, it's bhakti without the only important difference is there is no connection to the Vedas. See, they disregarded the concept of Vedas in their philosophy. But the message of the Vedas is the same. There is a spark of God within us and the divinity is right there. So in a sense, that was the message that they believed in, and that's common for the Bhakti movement. But since it was not had a connection to the Vedas, you can't say that it is part of the Bhakti movement. It's more a social revolution and a social movement.
Right. Thank you.
But there is lots of vairagya.
Question about what I meant by saying that Shiva was above the Trimurtis. I was only saying that, see, when I say Shiva, it's normal to equate it to the Shiva that we see in the picture of Shiva in Kailasha. Yes, it is figuratively that Shiva, but this Shiva is the Almighty. He is that fundamental force, whatever you call it. So it is referred to as Shiva in the sense to make it more accessible to us, but actually it refers to the primordial force. That's what I meant by saying that Shiva is above the Trinity.
But I find that there is a lot of vairagya, it is teaching us. Vachanas teaches a lot of vairagya, detachment.
Absolutely.
Detachment with love, detachment with bhakti, of course. I think it's so very awesome. In a very simple language, very, very simple, so that all the laymen understand what it is. It is not like Vedas where you had to study Sanskrit or anything. This is layman's language where it touches your heart.
And yes, and it's very practical. You can put it to, you can use it, you can apply it very easily in your day-to-day lives. The message is very easy to comprehend. You don't need, and it is easy to follow. So
very, very similar to our Dasara Padagulu is what I noticed.
Yes, the Dasara Padagulu came after this. Actually, Vachanas were a precursor to that. Roughly about a century later came the Haridasas, and they carried forward the Bhakti movement, which was based on the Vedas. So there for them, the spark of divinity within was Krishna. Here it is Shiva. I mean, that's the only difference.
They're the same, right? Whether it is Shiva, Krishna, or whatever you call, they are the same. Different avatars, that's all.
Maybe we will not start arguing about gods. Every god will say.
We're not arguing, we're accepting. We're accepting everything. That's it.
Fine,
All inclusive.
Sandhya, there's one more
Thank you
question
very
by
much,
Luke.
Thank you.
One more question by Luke Dhanraj.
Sumitra, I want to
I have heard in the book that Basavanna, in fact,
can
by
all the
birth
others
is a
mute, please?
Brahmin.
Mute your audio. Can all the others mute your audio except the presenter, please?
Ma'am, Lalita here. I have a query. Basavanna, as per some of the stories that I've heard, by birth, I think he was a Brahmin, and then he was an atheist. He did not believe in the caste system, basically. So, but he being he was ardent devotee of Shiva and all this. Was his intent also to form a different sect called Lingayat? Because in many of the scriptures, I read it as he was against the casteism and he believed in equality. So was his intent to build another caste system itself called Lingayat at those times?
No, actually, as I said, yes, he was a Brahmin and he gave up his Brahmin tenets to go and spread a message where it is not related to rituals and dogmatic principles. He sort of made it very accessible to anybody who wanted to follow some advice that is very meaningful for your life, the conduct of your life. So it is not a religion. I don't think he wanted to form a religion. He wanted to remove the shackles of religion and the divisiveness in society. So he wanted to simplify everything as far as possible. And in that simplification, he said there is one God called Shiva, and you worship him like this. That is all that is needed. So I don't know whether he actually wanted to form a religion, but it is more a movement. It is a spiritual movement, spiritual and social movement.
Thank you.
Luke, please give your question, please.
Yeah, my question is a little probably very primitive. Sumitra, you mentioned that Shiva that you mentioned is above all above the Trimurtis and the primordial God who probably created the universe as stated in the Upanishads. Now, was there a separate God, or are you talking about this Shiva as Almighty?
From what I have read about Veerashaiva literature is what you say Shiva is the Almighty, is the primordial God.
So was there a
though
separate
they have
Shiva?
given the form, though they have the linga as the symbol, what they are referring to is the primordial God.
Okay, thanks.
Sandhya?
Sir?
Sandhya, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yes, please. Do then Lingaites follow Shiva Purana and other Puranas?
It has changed over the centuries. Now, as I said, there are even temples for the Lingaites. Though, according to the limited interviews that I had with practicing Lingaites, it's not mandatory for them to do so or prescribed. So, honestly, I have to tell you that I am not aware of exactly how they view that now. I mean, parables and stories connected around Shiva. But looking at the fact that even Basavanna and Akka Mahadevi and others refer to him as somebody who resides in Kailasa, yes, they have also in a way gone with the concept of Shiva as Shiva. And in addition, he is elevate you to a status above that.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a question here. Is this a part of the Bhakti movement or precedes the Bhakti movement? You can say that the Bhakti movement started even prior to this, because the Alvars and the Nayanmars, as I mentioned, had already come and sung the praises of Vishnu and Shiva in the southern India, and they had actually left the scene by the time the Sharanas arrived. So and I don't think it can be called a Bhakti movement, but this certainly came after the first phase of the Bhakti movement. This was carried forward later by the mystics from Maharashtra, by the Haridasas, and those that followed the Sharanas. But this was more a social revolution and philosophical and social revolution than what we can call a Bhakti movement. That's what I would say for the queries that's been asked on the chat.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, can we end the session here?
ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಮೇಡಮ್. ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ವೇಳೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರಿ. ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಗಟ್ಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅದು ಈಗ ಸಮಯ ಅಲ್ಲ.
Why don't you conclude with a small vachana by singing it? You have a very nice one.
I will do that.
ಒಂದು ವಚನ ಹೇಳಮ್ಮ. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ we go back to our household mundane jobs.
ಅಲ್ಲಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಭು ವಚನ ಹೇಳಿ ಮೇಡಮ್, ಯಾವ್ದಾರ ಒಂದು.
Yes, I don't know. Allama Prabhu. I think one more vachana. So in this vachana, he says, very interesting again. Nada Priya Shivan Embaru. Nada Priya Shivan Allah. Veda Priya Shivan Embaru. Veda Priya Shivan Allah.
Please put off your audio, please. Shiva Prasad, off the audio so that we can hear her better. Thank you. Yes, madam. Please go ahead.
I'll just give a brief about this vachana before I read it. So it says, Shiva is a Nada Priya. Now, why Nada Priya? You remember that when, somebody was asking me about the connection of Shiva with the Shiva as we know him. So this is an episode from Shiva's life where Ravana was playing the Veena, and Shiva was very pleased with it. And then Ravana got very, he became full of pride about it. And then Shiva, to send his arrogance, crushed Kailasha and crushed Ravana. And then Ravana played the Veena again, and Shiva was pleased and removed his toe from there so that Ravana could be rescued. So this is it referred to in this vachana. So Nada Priya Shivan Embaru, Nada Priya Shivan Allah. Don't you remember what happened to Ravana and how his life was cut short by half because he played the Nada for Shiva? And then you would think that Shiva is a Veda Priya, one who likes the Vedas. But don't you remember that Shiva actually cut off the head of Brahma, who is the creator of the Vedas? Yes, Brahma had 5 heads, and Shiva cut off one of those heads when he was upset with Brahma, who lied to him. So, Veda Priya Shivan Embaru, Veda Priya illa, he's not a Veda Priya. Okay, he's not a Nada Priya and he's not a Veda Priya. Then what is he? He is a Bhakti Priya. So, what he wants is true Bhakti from his devotees. So that's what we were also referring to, whether this is a Bhakti movement. Yes, it's a Bhakti movement in that sense, but not in the traditional sense of a Bhakti movement that we know about. So I will conclude with this vachana. Nada Priya Shivanembaru, Nada Priya Shivanalla, Nada Priya Shivanembaru, Nada Priya Shivanalla, Veda Priya Shivanembaru, Veda Priya Shivanalla, Nada Priya Shivanembaru, ನಾದವನುದೀಸಿದ ರಾವಣಂಗರ್ಧಾಯುಷ್ಯ ನಾದವನುದೀಸಿದ ರಾವಣಂಗರ್ಧಾಯುಷ್ಯ ವೇದವನೋದಿತ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಶಿರ ಹೋಯ್ತು ವೇದವನೋದಿತ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ ಶಿರ ಹೋಯ್ತು ನಾದ ಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿವನೆಂಬರು ನಾದ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ವೇದ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ನಾದ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ವೇದ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವಾ ಭಕ್ತಿ ಪ್ರಿಯನೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೂಡಲ ಸಂಗಮ ದೇವಾ ದೇವಾ ದೇವಾ
Awesome rendering, ma'am. Rendering. Very nice.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಮೇಡಮ್.
I think all of us are clapping the way we want. You heard it.
So
You didn't
sweet
hear it.
of you. There will be a lot of us asking for uncause, but I think all of us also have our household duties now. Yes, we have to come back to earth.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Pleasure talking to all of you. I hope next time I can make this presentation in Kannada. I should learn enough to be confident about that.
Next, you should do your dance presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'd love to see that.
Normally in
Thank
this
you.
also I demonstrate a little bit of Abhinaya too of these vachanas, but today I was not able to do that. But next time.
Okay, don't
Yes.
worry. We learn as we go along.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Sumitra.
Madam,
That was
ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು
really amazing.
ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll share her email ID. Is that okay?
Yes, Sandhya, please.
Yeah.
ಯಾಕೆಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಮಠದಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಪಭೂಷಣ ಜಯಂತಿ ಅಲ್ಲಮ ಪ್ರಭು ಜಯಂತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಯುಗಾದಿ ದಿನ.
Oh.
ಯುಗಾದಿ ಮಾರನೇ ದಿನ ಆವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನ ನಿಮ್ಮಂತವ್ರನ್ನ ಕರೆಸ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು.
ಖಂಡಿತ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ.
ಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳು ಕರೆಸ್ತಾರೆ.
Okay.
2 ದಿನ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
Definitely.
ನಿಮ್ಮ
ಖಂಡಿತ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ.
ನಂಬರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮೇಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ನಾನು ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ.
ಹಾ, ಸಂಧ್ಯಾ will you give it to him?
ಈ ಬಾರಿ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಯಾಕೆಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಲಾಕ್ ಡೌನ್ ಆಗೋಯ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಯುಗಾದಿ ಸಮಾರಂಭ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲ್ ಐಡಿ ಅಥವಾ ಇದು ನಂಬರ್ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ನಾನು
Nitin Sumitra at Gmail. NITINSUMITRA@gmail.
ನಿತಿನ್ ಸುಮಿತ್ರಾ
@gmail.
ಓಕೆ ಮೇಡಮ್.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, madam, for a wonderful,
Can I leave now?
wonderful
Yes.
musical morning, musical Vachanaitic morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for this knowledge sharing with all of us.
Thank you.
Oh, I am.
ಬಹಳ ಸಂತೋಷವಾಯಿತು ಮೇಡಮ್.
Thank you for being there and encouraging me.
Thank you everyone for being part of this Baat Ki Baat series. This unfortunately will be the last of the series today. When we open up next, we'll let you know. Thank you, Sumitra, for the amazing presentation. Hopefully.
Thank you, Sandhya. It was a pleasure being part of BAF's morning. I look forward to the next one. Bye bye.
Me too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.